In the last class, we had a look at the definition of sustainable development, the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. That was a Brundtland Commission definition given in 1987. That is the most accepted form of definition for sustainable development. Today, we will have a look at what is known as three aspects or three dimensions of sustainable development or sustainability. Sometimes it is called three dimensions, sometimes three aspects, sometimes three pillars. There will be different usages. Even sometimes in economic terms, sometimes they call it as three bottom lines. But generally, they say three pillars or three dimensions of sustainability or sustainable development. That is social, environmental, and economic. So this is what we are going to discuss today. And basically, this need to be represented in the form of diagrams. Usually, the most common form is the Venn diagram, which is shown in the middle, where society, economy, and environment they overlap, and the place where they overlap all, that is the sustainability. Or in some of the other representations, you will see economy and society and environment as three pillars, and these three pillars support sustainability at an equal manner, showing all three are equally important. And in some other representations, you will see environment is a superset, because everything what we have is from the environment. Environment includes all the human beings and all the materials and all the climatic factors, everything. So environment is a superset. Within that, we have the society, and in the society, during its structure, during its growth process, we have got what is known as economy. So this sometimes they represent it as three concentric circles, in which the environment is the most important, and everything else is a subset of that. And when this kind of Venn diagrams of overlapping circles are given, you will see that these circles are of equal size. But generally, people agree that environment is the superset, and economy should be the least sized one, or it's a subset of the society. But if you consider three aspects or three dimensions or three pillars of sustainability, all will be shown in equal dimension. So this may be little confusing to understand in the beginning, but as time passes and as we have a few more topics discussed in the next few classes, it will become more clear. But I shall try to give you a few examples, trying to show you how these three aspects or three dimensions are interconnected, and how these things has to be in balance, or to have a sustainable development or a sustainable society or a sustainable country. Or you may have definitions like sustainable economy, sustainable society, sustainable environment. You cannot have a sustainable environment alone, but you need sustainable economy and sustainable society. I can give you a few examples, but this kind of examples you may not see in the textbooks, but may not be politically correct also. But I can say, if you look at country level, if you look at China, you will see that in the recent years, the economy of China has been growing much faster rate than India. In over the last few decades, the per capita income of people in China has gone up considerably. Economy has grown considerably. And if you look at the other three aspects of China as a country, the environment. If you look at the environment, you will see, because of the rapid industrialization, and since they were not paying much attention to environment like other most developed countries, there is a lot of pollution and there is considerable environmental degradation in China. So because of that, you can see that uh, in China, environment is getting spoiled. As a result, as a country, it is likely to suffer. And there were some indications, that last time when there was Beijing Olympics, uh, some of the athletes from other countries refused to participate because the air quality in that Beijing was so bad that athletes could not perform. And uh, there was an instance, it seems, when China wanted to recruit people for army from a particular district. They found that nobody was fit. Perhaps air pollution induced lung problems in most of the people, and health of the people has gone down. So if that happens, in the long run, that country will not be able to sustain its development. If people are not healthy, they will not be productive, and they cannot be there. They cannot be there. And similarly, economy is growing, but the environment is going down. In that case, the country cannot sustain its growth forever. Similarly, if you look at the third dimension, society, if the society is not balanced, or if social uh, equity is not made sure, or if people's needs are not met, and if there is no good governance, then again there could be unrest, and the country as such cannot progress. So you hear a lot of news from China or Hong Kong about its social unrest. So if there is social unrest, that again is it is socially, it is not sustainable. So if all these things are sustainable, then only the country as such will be sustainable, or it will be progressing at the same manner as it is doing now. And China could be an example. Or if you look at Hong Kong itself, a part of China, there itself, economy is pretty good. Environment also was reasonably good, but there is social unrest because of the political setup there. Because of that, uh, the country cannot sustain any further, or that the growth will not be there. Now itself, we can hear that news that many of the tech giants working in Hong Kong are going out of Hong Kong. So Hong Kong as such will not be that prosperous, and its development will not be sustained to the, coming decades. And if you look at another country, for example, Sri Lanka, it is a small country, environment, a very good environment, and economy was not that growing well. But more than that, there was the issue was mainly with society, because there was a lot of struggle. The Tamil militants and fight was going on, so internal conflicts in the country. So society was at unrest. Because of that fight within the country, the economy has gone down, and the environment also is damaged. And in many of the African countries, again, you will see when there is number of militia groups fight each other, militant groups fight each other, they kill the animals in the forest, and that they damage the environment, they do illegal mining, and that is not going to the economy of the country also. So perhaps India could be cited as a balanced thing compared to many other countries, where our economy is growing at a reasonable good pace, and environmental protection people are concerned and they take some action, and the society is more or less, because of the democracy we have, is balanced. But all these things has to further improve, so that this the entire development of the country will be sustained in the sense, economy in the terms of GDP growth, it has to be sustained. We will say 5% growth. Okay, if you economically sustain, means that 5% has to be sustained forever. Environmentally sustained means that environment has to be sustained every year. The forest area in the country should not come down, it should be sustained. And the society, social unrest should not be there, inequalities should not be there, it should be maintained. If that is the case, you can say that it is sustainable. And we'll have further discussions. I hope when we go through that, it will become little more clear and a little more in detail. In the examination, whenever they ask about three aspects or three dimensions or three pillars of sustainability, most preferably you can draw this diagram. If you want to enlarge this diagram, this could be another option: social, environmental, and economic sustainability. And uh, where it overlaps, you get the real sustainability. And between society and economy, social sustainability and economic sustainability, the overlapping portion is equitable. Equitable is written here in the sense equitable distribution. If economic growth is there in a country, and if it is not equitably distributed in the society, that country or the society cannot be sustained. For example, if a country is growing and all the money that is generated in that country is going to few people, few industrial houses, and if all the wealth is concentrated on few people, that is not equitable distribution. Equitable means not equal distribution also. The example is, in now we got ration card with a different color, and in ration card with a different color, you get ration in different quantities and different items. So people who need more has to be given more. That is equitable distribution, not equal distribution. Everybody should not be given equally, but who are really in need should be given more. That is equitable. So if that is there, then you can say that there is a harmony between social sustainability and economic sustainability. But if somebody is growing, the country is growing, but all the economic growth is going to the pocket of few people, that is not equitable distribution. Perhaps commonly we draw this cartoon to show what is equality and what is equity. There is a difference. Equality means given everybody the equal thing, but they will not be reaching where they want to, or their basic needs are not satisfied. Okay, somebody want to see the match, all are given equal height, uh, but they are not able to. I mean, somebody with lesser height cannot reach. But if the one who is having real height, he has to give away that, and it has to be distributed so that everybody can enjoy life. That is the principle of equity, and that is what the governance has to do. Good government has to do. That is why the rich are taxed more, and poor are taxed less, and poor are given more welfare measures. That is required to maintain sustainability. Otherwise, the country will not survive. The rich will become richer, poor will become poorer, and the gap will become wider. There will be social unrest. So, in order to avoid that, we need to have this kind of equitable distributions. Equitable. And environment and society, again, in between, you will say it is bearable. Bearable in the sense, bearable in the sense, um, it has to be bearable in the sense, let us say, um, a society want to have some kind of economic growth by sacrificing environment. For example, anybody from the world up to recent times could invest in places like or countries like Malaysia, where you can have rubber plantations, or you can have palm oil, palm tree plantations. Somebody, I mean, their natural forest could be converted to palm oil plantations. Somebody can invest there and produce palm oil. Government is permitting. So it could be good for the society to some extent. Maybe the benefit of that will be going to the nearby societies, but it is bad for the environment. But it has to be balanced. So how much of forest can be destroyed so that the social benefits will be there? Or another thing, another example wherein there are some few people living in forest. They can act as guides for tourism, ecotourism in the forest. But if too many people come into that forest environment, it is good for that society of guides, society of people living in the forest. They will get more money, but it cannot be bearable for the environment. That forest will not be there if too many people come in and chase away the animals and garbage the tourism spots. Then that will not be sustained. So in a sustained manner, sometimes they will say into a ecological park per day you can have this many visitors only. So the income has to be restricted. So it is in between society, a trade-off between social sustainability and environmental sustainability. Similarly, environment and economy, something has to be viable. Viable in the sense, um, in order to protect the environment, if you take some project, if it is not economically viable, it cannot be done. So we will have to protect the environment. At the same time, we will have to contribute to the economy also. For example, if you want to have a hydroelectric power plant in a forest, so naturally forest will be disturbed and partially destroyed. But if it is quite essential for the economy of the state or the country, sometimes you will have to make some trade-off. It has to be a viable project. So for that, a informed decision after discussion with the environmentalist and the economist has to be decided, so that the development, the economic benefit will be sustainable and the environment also will be sustained. But all the money that is generated, if it is not going to the people, then the society will not be sustained. So these three dimensions you will have to remember: society, economy, and environment. And
ഹലോ സാർ, ഹലോ
yes,
സാർ, ഒരു കുട്ടി കയറാൻ പറ്റില്ല എന്ന് പറയുന്നു സാർ.
no,
ആക്സെപ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യും.
no, latecomers I will not be permitting. See, I cannot spend all the time for letting people in. Okay. And social, economic, and environmental, the details are like social, economic, and environmental sustainability. And, this is little more explained. So the economic and social equitable thing means, what is that means? Fair taxation, business ethics, and trade, workers' rights, and government spending. These are the factors which will be showing that equitable distribution is made out. Similarly, between economy and environment, to have a sustained economic sustainability and environmental sustainability, whatever project you are taking up, there has to be energy efficiency, and there has to be subsidies or tax breaks for those who are protecting the environment, and things like carbon credits. That is why now, see, whenever if you look at automobiles restrictions in country, sometimes they will say more energy efficient vehicles only are permitted, less polluting vehicles are permitted, or for electric vehicles there is tax subsidies. So these are some of the actions taken by the government to balance economy and environment. Similarly, to balance between society and the environment, we have environmental laws and the public environment in reporting and publishing. The best example that is happening in India is, now you would have heard of this EIA, Environmental Impact Assessment and Notification 2020. Environmental impact assessment is something which throughout the world governments do, or the public or private do, before taking up a major project which is likely to impact the environment considerably. So for that, let us say there is a huge dam project, or let us say there is a thermal power plant, or a huge industry coming up, which is likely to affect the land, air, and people's income. Then we will have to conduct what is known as environmental impact assessment. So how to conduct the environmental impact assessment, for which all projects environmental impact assessment is required, who can do that, all the details are given in the environmental impact assessment notification by the government. So these laws are published, and people can give feedback, and people's involvement in that, protecting the environment, and that is a good sign in India. So whenever there is a question for 14 marks or 7 marks, 3 marks means you can just show a diagram like this and leave it. But if it is for 7 or 14 marks, then you will have to draw it in detail, and you will have to give some explanations. And I'll just give you some explanatory material. So we have been talking about social sustainability. Social sustainability is the ability of a social system, such as a country, family, or organization, to function at a defined level of social well-being and harmony indefinitely. So social sustainability means a society or a country or a state or a family, whatever be that you are considering, can sustain in harmony indefinitely without any revolt in that. So problems like war, endemic poverty, that is, endemic means within that staying for long time. Endemic poverty, widespread injustice, and low education rates are symptoms of symptoms that a system is socially unsustainable. So a country or a state will not be sustained if there is problems like internal wars, like in Sri Lanka or in many of the African countries, and endemic poverty. If the state is not able to eradicate poverty, that the country cannot sustain. And if there is widespread injustice in wealth distribution and other things, there will be definitely internal problems, there will be war, and that country will not sustain. And if there is no education, low education rates indicates that people are not, awareness is not there. Because of that, sustainability will not be there. So one of the reasons why Kerala is rated in all these things high is because of this high education rate, because of the high awareness. Or in short, this could be defined as social sustainability is the ability of a society or any social system to persistently achieve a good social well-being. So if you look at compared to other states in India, social sustainability is at a greater level in Kerala. And environmental sustainability. Environmental sustainability is the availability of the environment to support a defined level of environmental quality and natural resources extraction rates indefinitely. And generally people feel that it is a big problem. So if the environment is sustained, that in the sense forest is sustained, forest area is not reduced, the number of animals in the forest is not reduced, the timber that is available in the forest is not reduced, or if you're taking something from the forest, for example, if you're extracting timber once in a while, it should be extracted in such a way that for an indefinite period you should be able to get that timber from that forest. So you should be extracting it in such a way that whatever you are extracting in a year, it should be growing back in that year. In that way, you can say it is sustainable. And for the economic sustainability, basically we can say if the GDP rate of a country is maintained, that is a economic sustainability. Economic sustainability is the ability of an economy to support a defined level of economic production indefinitely. So the level of economic production could be measured in terms of GDP. And sometimes in sustainability, three dimensions, in business perspective, they say three bottom lines. That is, one is instead of telling society, they say people. Instead of environment, they may say planet. And instead of economy, they may say profit. So three P's: people, planet, profit. So this is another way of telling it, but usually in economic terms, they say that. And the concentric circles I already mentioned, general feeling is that these circles are not equal. Everything is within the ambit of the environment. So environment is a superset and its subset is society, and economy is still its subset. Okay, so I'll show you a video from a civil engineering perspective. What is a sustained business? In the case of a civil engineer, in the case of a civil engineer who is running a construction business. Um, his business is coming down because he is not able to sustain it because of the negative impacts on the society, economy, and in the environment. Uh, there is a video. I'll just for a few minutes. I'll show you that video. I hope it will be visible to you.
Henry works in construction. He is in the business of building houses.
Are you able to hear the audio also? Can anybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because he wants his business to be successful, he analyzed the numbers, applied for a loan, and relied on luck. However, Henry realized that the numbers were not adding up, so he began to reduce costs. He fired people, reduced salaries, used materials of questionable quality. He soon found himself with no clients, in debt, and without any kind of support. It was then when he understood that every decision he made had an impact on the environment, on his community, and therefore, on his business. For Henry, who had been focusing on the economic dimension of his business, it was like seeing in 3D, the three dimensions of sustainability. He then began to do things differently. Of course, he took care of all the financial aspects of the business, beginning by complying with the law and making sure that he was up to date with his taxes. He asked himself who and how responsible were his suppliers? What were the expectations of his clients? How was his relationship with both? Then he began to think about his employees. He hired responsibly. He guaranteed health and safety conditions and fair wages. He decided to work with his community, and he focused on reducing the environmental impacts of his business. He optimized the use of water and other materials, reduced the consumption of electricity, used green technology to reduce the emissions in transportation, and implemented a waste disposal system. By working actively in the three dimensions of sustainability, Henry was able to improve his reputation, reduce costs, and finally, increase sales. By respecting the rights of others, mitigating his environmental impacts, and engaging in transparent business management practices, Henry found the balance necessary to contribute to the sustainable development of his community and his company.
Okay, there was one more video. I can't show it right now because we don't have time. Coming back to the presentation. This is something which, if time permits, I'll show you at the end. There are a few more terms I just wanted to tell you. So the most important takeaway from this class should be the three dimensions or three pillars of sustainability or sustainable development, the economy, society, and the environment, and its Venn diagram, and a little bit of explanation. That is the most important thing from this. And there are few more associated terms which you may have to remember or understand. Sometimes questions may be asked. There is a term carrying capacity. Carrying capacity means how many people can be supported by this earth, simple term. That is the carrying capacity of the earth. Or in a forest, there are some animals. Deer is there, it is eating the grass. How many deer can be supported in that forest indefinitely? If the number of deer increase too many, all the grass will disappear. Then they will die because of starvation. So what is the optimum number or the maximum number which could be sustained indefinitely forever? That is the carrying capacity. So if the carrying capacity exceeds, then environmental degradation will be there. the population cannot be sustained there. So that is the meaning of the term carrying capacity. Then there is another term, ecological footprint. This is something again relevant to this. The area of biologically productive land and water required to produce goods and goods consumed and to dispose the waste generated. So ecological footprint of a human being means what is the total area of land and water that is required on this planet to support him for a single person. Because he needs food, so food has to be grown using the current technology. It's all measured using the current technology. Maybe in the future, with the latest technology, you may be able to produce large amount of food from 1 meter square area. But with the available technology, how much area is required to produce the food for him? How much area of land is required to mine the minerals or metals that he uses in gadgets? Or what is the area of the land that is required to provide him the fossil fuel he is using? What is the area of land that is required to dispose of the waste that is producing? So generally, how much area is required for a human being? That is expressed in what is known as human hectares. It includes the area of land and water, because you consume fish sometimes, and that requires water. So you need again water for agriculture, water for all of the recreation. So the area biologically productive land and water required to produce goods consumed and to dispose the waste generated. That is the ecological footprint. If somebody is using a lot of in general terms, if the standard of living is high, economical footprint will be high. For example, for an average Indian, footprint may be few hectares, but for a person from Kuwait, Middle East country, a native will be much higher. Or a person from US or European countries, the ecological footprint will be much higher. Number of hectares will be more. And there is another term, biocapacity. Biocapacity refers to the capacity of a given biologically productive area to generate an ongoing supply of renewable resources and to absorb its spillover waste. So what is the capacity of a area to generate food and absorb waste? Biocapacity. For example, the world has got certain biocapacity, how much food it can produce, how much waste it can absorb. That is the biocapacity of the world. So if you have in a forest, it has got some biocapacity. Let us say you take 100 acres of forest, it has got certain capacity, or every year certain amount of grass only will grow there. So you can have certain number of deer only in that forest. They can eat that grass, and the waste generated by the deer has to be disposed of again. Too much of waste means that will again spoil the grass environment. So that is an example. Likewise, in the world has got certain capacity to produce food, and it has got certain capacity to absorb the waste and rejuvenate itself. So if you exceed that biocapacity, then there is a real problem. So unsustainability occurs if an area's ecological footprint exceeds the biocapacity. That is what has happened on this planet in the early 1970s, 1971, 1972, and all. Of course, the calculation varies. In the world, the population has increased considerably, and their ecological footprint of all the people in this planet, if you put together, that has exceeded the biocapacity of the planet. So 1971 onwards, we are on debt. But then how it is going on? In certain countries, the ecological footprint will be really high. In certain countries, it may be small. So somehow we are managing, that's all. But really, we have exceeded the biocapacity of the world in 1970s itself. So if you take 365 days, in fact, the world do not have the capacity to produce the required food and to absorb the waste of all the people at the rate at which people are consuming right now. So for 365, world doesn't have the capacity. Maybe by August 20th, the general capacity of the world will be over. Beyond that, it is all deficit. So they say that particular day as the overshoot day. So we say overshoot occurs when humanity's ecological footprint exceeds Earth's biocapacity. And Overshoot will be Earth's biocapacity, it is limited. Humanity's ecological footprint is more than Earth's biocapacity. Earth can produce certain food, absorb certain waste. It is limited. But human beings' ecological footprint is more than that. Because of that, this value is less than 1. That less than 1 into 365. That is the number of days really Earth can support people. So only August 22nd, up to that date only Earth can support people at an average. But from country to country, it will vary. Certain countries in July itself, it will be exhausted. Certain countries, it will go to December. Certain countries, more than 365 days, it can, support. This is from the global footprint network. If you visit the site, you will get a lot of information. This shows the details of global footprint. And footprint biocapacity per person, I have already mentioned in 1971 it exceeds and overshoot started, and you can see in 1971 it started. One is the ecological footprint and the other one is ecological reserve. And country wise, you can see which all the countries which has exceeded and what are the ways in which we can reduce the ecological footprint. So there are a few questions, so I'll wind up here. All